expand tokens on Sitecore items. Everybody knows what a token is, right? So you have $name. When you add that to standard values and you create a new instance of it, it'll add the name of the item within whatever field you put it in. You can do that with ID, you can have parent ID, things like that. Sometimes if you create, let's say you create an item and it uses, it populated things that were in standard values before and then you added standard values later, that bleeds through to the existing content items. And you're like, all right, what do? I have to expand them somehow. So this kind of command could fulfill a requirement like that, where I have to expand them. Run a script, go through items, and expand things that weren't expanded before because they were added later. So this implements iCommand, which actually lives in revolver.core. I'm using the base command, which is a base class that Alistair wrote for all of his commands within Revolver. There's a lot of cool things on it, which I'm not going to actually talk about. Basically, bare minimum, you have to implement help. So you got to be helpful to your users. And this is abstract. It would be, you have to implement this. And also you have run. And run, as it says, will run the command and do things. So there's an object here that I saw in some of his classes called context switcher. I don't really understand what it does. I think it's important because it's in all of his commands. So I just reused it. So basically I checked to see if, hey, is the path being passed in, part of the path of what I'm, trying to execute this command on. Because Revolver also supports kind of partial paths as well. So I can do, sort of like Sitecore content home, I can do content home. If it doesn't match that, then I return an error. You return a command result, and then you have an enum that has a failure. Let the user know that something is wrong. Here, I'm not doing anything magical. I'm just using the basically the master variables replacer object that you can set in your web config in a setting. The factory class, which is in Sitecore.configuration, will create an instance of that. I put it here in just an instance variable, so I can reuse it. And I'm just making an item editable. I'm just passing it to it, and then I just stop. If I encounter an exception, I cancel the edit, and then I return the result. That's all I do. And the result will be success or failure, and just returns back to Revolver. So I'm going to go back. And like I said, I actually wrote a custom command that actually will expand tokens recursively on items. So I don't know if you noticed, but if you look in help, my custom command is right here. It shows up. So the help method that you have to implement, this is where it gets populated, and that shows the users what this thing does. So you do ET content home. Expand tokens on the home item. Let's go see what that looks like. I have a $name in the title field right here, and look at that. Welcome to the home page. I created my script is called ETR, which is for recursive. This is the name of the Sitecore item that's in the core database. It will look it up by name recursively. So boom, and say I'm going to actually pass in home again. And that did it on all these guys right here. Did it recursively on everything, all the way down. Let's just do that. I'm just going to put it on here. And boom, here we go. So that's Revolver. So I'm going to move on to the next thing, which is Sitecore PowerShell extensions. This is built by Adam Namanovich, Sitecore MVP at Cognified in Poland. Basically, this is open source as well. It's just kind of like an interface of PowerShell, which is built into Windows, into Sitecore. It installs as a package. One package install, you don't have to do anything special, no configuration things, nothing. And it just magically starts working because PowerShell is built into Windows. And it gives you access to the Sitecore API and the .NET API as well. So let's take a look and see what that looks like. So this module has a lot of moving parts to it. So you have the PowerShell console, which I'll be honest, I haven't really used it that much because I had some problems with it. I fell in love with something called the integrated scripting environment. And I'll show you that after this stops loading. just kidding. So we have the PowerShell integrated scripting environment. You have a context item that you can use. So I'm using my home item. So I have some things filled out here because I can't remember everything. So the way commands work in PowerShell is that things start off with a verb, and then they end with a noun, and they're separated by a hyphen. So get verb will give me all the verbs that are available within this system. I just want to point out also that if you highlight a command and you press Control Enter, you get a help window of that command. Evidently not this one. There we go. So this will give me some help information about this particular command that I highlighted and did Control Enter on. I can see, what does it take in for input? What can I do with it? What is it all about? This works for most PowerShell commands. I think actually you don't have to actually fill this out when you build your own custom commands, so this could be empty at times. I've seen that, and I was very sad when I saw that on something. Anyways, I'm going to look at get verb. Get verb will give me all the verbs that are available in this system. So I do Control E for execute, and I actually forgot to comment that out. Control E. That gives me a list of all the verbs that are available. And then I can say, hey, I want to see all the commands that are available for get, for the get verb. So boom, boom. So it gives me a list of all the commands that start with get. Some of these are built into Windows, others were added by Adam and his team for this module. But I'm not going to search for anything. There's also something really cool here. You can get hyphen, and then I can do Control Space, and I get a context auto dropdown that says, hey, this is available for any command starting with get hyphen, and then I can select things. And if you're like, hey, I don't know what this does, so I press Enter and do that, and do boom, and I can get help information on this. This is an example of something that's not helpful, but it's there. So here, you can get items based on a path or the current context item, which is represented by the dot. So the current item that I'm on is home, which is right here. So do that, execute. And I have the home item right here. I have all of its fields. I can see values inside of it, renderings, all that good stuff. So if you want to chain things together, you use a pipe here just like you would in Unix. I'm actually not going to show this. This is, actually maybe I could show this now. I'm first going to wait. It's a teaser. So here's an example of, I can create a new item right here using this command, new item, which is actually part of the SPE module. So I'm going to create a new item underneath home with the sample item template called my test. And there we go, here's my test. I put in my test here. So I think I had the $sign name on standard values. I also can remove my test. And I'm going to create my test yet again, but I'm going to change the title field here. So what I'm doing is I create the item here, and then I pipe it into this nice little syntactical sugar way of setting fields on an item. Or you can actually set this on any object within PowerShell. I don't really understand how this works. I actually couldn't figure out how to set multiple properties on an object. I only can figure out how to do it for one, but it's here. There you go. This is my card. delete it. Make it go bye-bye. All right, so I need to actually put in some token. Oh, I deleted it, sorry. So here, you also have the ability to build functions, which are kind of like scripts. And you can save them in a place that you can access them later. So here, I'm actually going to show you, I created a function earlier, a couple days ago. That actually lives in the master database here, in script libraries. I call it expand-sc tokens. And that will just expand tokens on items for a given path that you pass into it. I'm going to take this up and put this in Notepad so that we can see it. So basically, we have some help information here that I added. Michael West did a video series that was very helpful in seeing this. He did this in his video. It was really cool. I think this gets pulled in when you actually run the git commands, and you can see information about it. So here I do a command binding. I don't really understand what this does, but I saw that it was important. But I think it has something to do with getting these attributes to work. So I can say I want this particular parameter to not be null when it's passed to me. And I also need this to have the ability to be piped into another command, and that's what this means. Thank you to Adam Naimonovich for helping me with this, because I had no idea what I was doing. So basically, I'm just doing, kind of like the same thing that I was doing over in Revolver. I'm calling the factory class, and then I'm calling the static method getMasterVariables replacer. To call a static method on a class, you use the double colon right here. It's kind of like, I don't know if anybody has any experience with C++, but I think this is the C++ way of doing things. I don't know why it's done that way, but that's just part of the language. So I create an instance of the MasterVariables replacer class. I pass in my item that's passed from as a parameter, and then I give some useful information saying, hey, I expanded tokens on this guy. If it bombs out, then I cancel the edit, and then I say, sorry, and here's the problem why. It's in this is a global variable in PowerShell, and it will show you some exception information, which is really cool. So to run this, you actually have to run a command to get it within, within the current namespace, or whatever you want to call this window. So you could call execute script, which will run it, and it'll just define it, just like in JavaScript. It's like an include file. And then here, I'm getting the current item, I'm adding it to an array, then I'm getting all children, or recursively, so all descendants really, and I'm adding that to the array, so this gives me one big array of stuff. And I pipe that into for each object, which is really like a syntactical way of looping over a collection. And then I'm going to pass it to my function, and this is the current object. It's kind of like, the object that's within the for loop. So let's run it and see what happens. And there we go. It ran it on all of these guys right here. Not all of them had tokens in them. I think only the home page did at the time, because I added it. Then boom. Here's my home page item with an ID of whatever the home page ID is, which is right there. So, I guess the next question is, can we build custom commands for it? Sure you can. So I built a custom command that does the same thing. It expands tokens. So basically, I am inheriting from the base command that Adam Naimonovich built. This in turn also implements or inherits from a PowerShell command that's built into the .NET library. I don't understand how all this works, but I don't have to, because a lot of this was already, things were put into place for me, and it just makes it easier. So here, so I have a help and I have run. I actually think I showed you the wrong class when I was looking at Revolver. So this is the PowerShell class right here. Wait a minute. Oh, sorry. So this is the PowerShell class right here, sorry. So I created an instance in the master variables replacer class right here, just as an instance variable within this class. Here's my parameter that passed in. It gets hydrated by the base class magically. Don't worry about it. I start editing, then I do a replace, then I end on exception, I cancel, and I throw the exception back to the PowerShell so that it will display it within the output window. And it will show you it